So often we blame or chuck it off as self-talk, but really deep down, is it really positive? Is it really serving us the way that we talk to ourselves, or is it really more of a sabotage? Might be, I don't know, calling myself out on that. Self-talk is especially important when we are going through massive transitions in life or business. And positive self-talk, what if we really had actual tools, like a tool to successfully ward off the gremlins and that downward spiral and change the way you talk to yourself? Because it's all on how we talk to ourselves and the language that we use towards ourselves, because we all know, like every single one of us, that self-sabotage is more often than we want to admit. Today's conversation, I'm so excited about it because it's very, very relevant to my world today. We're going to cover some of these priceless tools that are going to equip each of us to be better set up to transition personally on the inside and grow our businesses as well as our personal lives. And today we're going to chat about how to self-correct, how to self-identify when that's all going down, and how to avoid that downward spiral. Wherever you're watching from, thank you so much. We are on a lot of platforms and we appreciate you. If you're with us, let us know who you are and where you're from. If you're watching the replay, please hashtag replay and let us know that you're here as well. If there's by chance a link above you in the feed, go ahead and click that. Come on over to our platform where we'll be able to see you and your comments here. We are live on the Erin Strayer Show, where we are all about promoting, cultivating, and expanding amazing female entrepreneurs that are out in the world doing things just a little bit differently. We talk about hot topics and pain points like today, and self-sabotage and that downward spiral. Talking to ourselves makes a difference. We're going to give you workarounds to those today, which is how we are different. We don't just talk about them. We give you workarounds, tips, tricks, tools to those challenges that we as female business owners challenge and face every single day. I'm Erin Strayer, and recovering corporates and entrepreneurs hire me to get them business beyond the basics, because most are indecisive, they're held hostage by their own fear, and quite frankly, have settled for average. Cruise control, CPS, C+, excuse me. Nobody wants that. So I help them keep track of help them set obtainable goals, plugging gaping holes in their business and their personal lives, and taking their dreams to reality. And bottom line, I provide peak performance scaling strategies for growth-minded entrepreneurs so that you and your business gets the attention to detail and you start making money. You can find me at erinstrayer.com. Let's talk about our lady today. She's back for round 2. Gail Dixon is the creator and owner of Masterful Messaging. She is a top expert and trusted authority for creating messaging that commands attention, creates connection, and ignites impact. Ooh, big stuff. She is a best-selling author and speaker and is a word wizard who guides mission-driven entrepreneurs to create powerful messages that generate powerful results. With a master's in communication and over 25 years in the nonprofit sector, bringing in more than $20 million in funding, Gail now works with thought leaders, business experts, and up-and-coming change agents to name, frame, and claim their personal and brand identities. She's brilliant. You're going to appreciate this conversation today. Please welcome Gail Dixon.
Hi, Erin.
Hello.
Great to see you.
It's so fun to see you again. I'm so glad that you're here today, and you are on the web with us with the Gale Force winds banging down your door. So thank you.
We're in the safe zone here in Tallahassee, but certainly the state of Florida is still anticipating some serious wind for the next couple of days. So it's been a crazy few days.
Yeah. And so thank you for being here and hanging out with us. And I'm really, really excited. I'm really excited to talk about what we're going to be talking about today, because I know for me personally, and super transparently, because, why be fake? Self-sabotage is so much easier than positive self-talk.
Yeah,
I'm just going to go there and say that.
we come by it naturally. We hear it a lot as we're growing up. Sometimes those kinds of messages, corrective messages to us, are delivered with love and gentleness and care, and they don't sit in us in a self-sabotaging way. But when corrective messages come to us with criticism or with anger or with judgment, they can sit in the back of our minds and play on continuous loop for a very, very long time.
I just got goosebumps all over me. The continuous loop is no joke.
Right.
Like that repetitive over and over, and the triggers that come from it, and all of the things that play on that. It's like that broken record, like the needle never moves.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I know that this is so your wheelhouse, and words are so, it's what makes you tick, and it's what you're made of, and it's your massive superpower. We all struggle with it. Do you struggle with it?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah. I have that voice that plays in my head. The good news is that I've studied and learned and developed some strategies to counter that, and some things that I can say when that tape starts that interrupt that pattern. And it really is a pattern. We all create a story about ourselves and our lives and who we are in the world, how we view ourselves and how we view others. And we repeat that story. We tell people that story. When somebody says, tell me about yourself, you have a set pattern. I'm a this, I did this, I've had this experience. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm an entrepreneur, whatever. We write those stories in our heads. And when we write those stories with self-judgment and with negativity or with limitation instead of possibility, they come out of our mouths, whether it's in silence to ourselves or in what we say to other people. And we become habituated to the story. And so part of being successful and creating positive self-talk is we have to be willing to rewrite the story. And
can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
I think for a lot of us, we don't realize there's another option.
Exactly.
Am I right? Like, well, that's what got me to here. That's my story. That's my past. That's what's happened to me. And we get stuck.
Yes. And I think, we can't rewrite the story in terms of changing events, but we can rewrite the story in terms of the meaning we attach to those events and the impact they continue to have in our lives.
Give me some love on that one, people, because that is so true. The episodes, right? Like the experience, the actual thing. You can't change that, but we can change and apply the lessons that we learned from it.
Right. And, we have a great example going on right now in the state of Florida with all this hurricane coming and people getting ready and anticipating. And you'll see the different stories on the news. And two people standing in the same town talking to the reporter who face the same impending storm talk about it differently. One person may say, everything here is just stuff. We're going to pack up and leave. Other people out and anticipate, oh my God, I don't know what I'll do if we lose my home, and will I be able to keep my pets safe, and all of that. So one gets on what my friend Linda Fostek calls the worry-go-round. And one gets on the let's put a positive frame on this. And when we do the what if or because of, what we put after that sentence is changeable. We have the power to rewrite the meaning that we give to our lives. And so often we think it's about what someone did to us, and it's really about what we did in reaction to what happened to us.
That's a writer downer. That's so important to say that. We're making sure that people can hear us. There was a little, please make sure you guys can hear us on the recording here. Let us know in the feed, please. I think that is so huge that we actually, it's actually not what was done to us, right? Like,
right.
It's how we choose. Yeah.
Right. And I don't in any way mean to minimize people's past traumatic experiences. Sure. And to underscore that those experiences were traumatic and had an impact, and they were not okay. But what I do mean to say is you are safely removed from that traumatic situation and have had some assistance to heal and some work at reframing your safety and comfort in the world, you can say, I had a traumatic experience, not I am traumatized. You hear those are two really subtle differences, but they're big differences in terms of how it makes you behave into the world.
So true. It's so true. And I think that this leads me right into my question that I wanted to ask. How do we appreciate or honor that legacy, if you will, the stuff that's brought us to here, like that journey with positive self-talk? What's that look like?
Well, I think that the first thing we do is don't pretend it didn't happen. We acknowledge that the experience was real, that it felt the way it felt when it happened, but it doesn't need to keep feeling that way. We also acknowledge that if we are still walking, talking, breathing, what one important meaning that we glean from that experience is that we survived, and we have the power to survive even terrible things.
Yeah.
That's a really empowering feeling to say, whew, something really awful happened and I'm still here.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's very powerful. So we do that. We, if we can find and discern lessons from a negative experience, we say thank you for that lesson. Thank you for teaching me to be cautious about this. Thank you for teaching me that I didn't have to believe those terrible things that were said about me. So we acknowledge that, there's a saying that says, things are not done to you, they're done for you.
Yep.
And it is very hard in the midst of an awful experience to believe that, whether illness, a great loss, an abuse and trauma, a natural disaster. In the middle of it, you cannot have the vision that allows you to put it in the perspective of constructive language and rewrite. You can't rewrite the story when you're in the midst of it. You got to get a little step back, a little distance, and then you work on that.
Yeah.
And so
I was going to say something there too. I think that that's a massive, when we can actually identify that and consistently, because consistency is the key. I think it's one of the massive factors to allow us that growth, that consistent growth in identifying how we talk to ourselves and identifying that just switching our word patterns a little bit for us, to be more of a positive or a higher vibe than a negative or a lower vibration
Exactly.
type of situation there. And a lot of what interested me about you and having to bring you on, and we're going to keep going with our topic here, but a lot of the teaching that you do is actually the language of leadership.
Yes.
And this totally applies to that. So if our people who are listeners are leaders, either in their own companies or within somebody else's companies, this is huge for talking to your team members and the people that work with you and for you, and how do you even get the people at the bottom of the chain
Well, right.
to react the way that you want them to react. It's
And
all,
you know, when people resist change, Rick Maurer came up with a beautiful framework for that, and he talked about 3 basic sources for resistance to change. And he was talking primarily about change in organizations. So this is really applicable for leaders.
yeah.
And the first source of resistance is they don't get it. You know, they don't get the vision. They don't have enough information. They don't get it. The second is they don't like it. You know, you're putting something forth that doesn't feel good, doesn't align with their values. They don't feel comfortable with it, all of that. And the third is they don't like you.
It's true, isn't it?
They don't trust you.
Yeah.
So when you're a leader and you are trying to move people toward a goal or through a change, the language you use to move people changes depending on the resistance. And so often what happens in organizations, and we do it all the time, and I'm sure I was when I was in an organization and running a program, guilty, when change isn't being successful, we think it's about the first thing. We think it's about they don't get it. So we think we can train them into change. Well, if it's about information, that's a really useful tactic.
Sure.
And we explain more and we use language and we frame it. You know, we try to translate it into their terminology or whatever. However, if the resistance is about they don't like it or they don't like you, no amount of information is going to move them, because it's not about information. It's about values and connection and linking. And so you have to find a way as the leader to talk about the change in ways that give them a payoff for taking action.
Okay, people, I hope your pencils are sharp. We have a whole lot of people watching on our watch party with us, because you're bringing it home today, because it is so true that as leaders, we're the ones that change the environment.
Right.
And yeah, so if we want some kind of successful change to happen, we get to change and make that change in the positive ways with the language that we use, bringing forth the encouragement.
Yeah. Right. And, you know, I read something yesterday that was so powerful to me. And actually it was James Mattis, who you remember resigned as defense secretary. Right. And he recently did an interview.
Yeah.
And one of the things he talked about was in leadership, he followed the model of George Washington. And that model was, what you do first is listen. Then you learn. Then you teach. And finally, you lead. So you don't jump right into teaching. You got to listen first. You have to learn what motivates the people that you're leading. And if you listen hard enough, they'll tell you. They might not tell you in explicit words. It might not be fill in the blank. You might have to work at it a little bit, but you'll get it. And you have to learn then how to frame what you want to also give them what they want. In negotiation, we call it the win-win solution. And, if only the leader wins, nobody wins.
Nobody wins.
If only the leader wins, nobody wins. So, bringing it back to self-talk, you're the leader of the corporation of you. Okay. And that little voice in your head, the little continuous loop of criticism, the denier, what I call the Yeahbut, which is yeah, but, we could do this. Yeah, but that didn't work before. We could do that. Yeah, but I don't like that. The Yeahbut lives in your head. Yeah, but this, yeah, but that, yeah, but the other. So,
That's awesome.
You're the leader of the corporation of you. And as you're looking at rewriting your narrative, and, sometimes we choose change in our lives. I'm looking for a new job. I'm embarking on a new wonderful relationship. I am retiring and it's a positive thing. Sometimes change comes smacking us in the face by chance. But we craft a new self and a new narrative about ourselves as a result of moving successfully to change, to a new reality of us. And so the first thing we do is say, we're changing. And here are the good things about what's being left behind. Here are the things I appreciate. Give it that space. And that's particularly true if you're going through a loss. You need to grieve and honor what you're letting go of.
Sure.
You need to cherish that. Then the next thing is you have to anticipate the positive change. You have to anticipate that there is a better life, a better self, a newer, brighter story for you on the horizon. And write that. So the kinds of things you say to yourself is, when this positive thing happens, you take ownership. I can. You use phrases like I can, we will, it will be. And you put the positive things in there. So you anticipate a positive result. Now that it may take a while, you don't learn to ride a bicycle the first time you get on, you fall a little, you do that. But you anticipate when you're learning to ride that bicycle, you envision yourself riding that bicycle down the sidewalk to freedom. Do that in your head about the change. Envision yourself as fully and comfortably in that new identity, and use the language of ownership. Use the language of permission, the language of capacity and power, the language that says, I'm in charge of me.
I think that's super, super powerful. And is there a way for those of us that that's not a habit to talk in those ways, right?
Sure.
For many of us, it's not. It's because again, it's way more easy. It's way more easy. Here's my English. To talk badly about ourselves, about the situation, about the past, about the whatever.
It's the power of affirmation, Erin, and we do it all the time. We talk about, as entrepreneurs, money comes to me freely and easily.
Yeah.
As opposed to, what if I can't pay the bills?
Right.
I may be in the same situation. I don't yet have enough clients. The cash flow is not wonderful. But the affirmation of money flows to me freely and easily versus, what if I can't pay the bills?
Yeah.
And always, if you start the sentence with what if, make sure that if you first have to go to the what if it turns out badly, at least come behind it with, and what if it turns out great? At least come back with that next positive sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Because chances are, most of us don't travel under a black cloud 24/7, 365 days a year for the entirety of our lives.
Pig pan friend.
Chances are there's a brighter day. Sooner or later, there's a good thing coming. And the more you put that into the universe, the more you believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Learning theory tells us that the greatest predictor and the greatest contributor to learning a new skill is the belief that you can do it. Believe that the positive change is coming and speak into that belief.
So good.
Yeah.
It's
And
so
then the next thing is, ooh, there's a bad virus, and you got to inoculate yourself against the bad virus. And that bad virus is comparisonitis.
Oh my gosh, right? Like we all have that.
Mm-hmm.
Comparitis.
Avoid comparison. And there are three comparisons, three kind of symptoms of comparisonitis, if you will, that are really important to avoid in your self-talk. The first is comparing then to now. And this is particularly true if it's an unwelcome change and a loss.
Sure.
I used to be able to run a mile in X many minutes. Now
Right?
I can't. I used to have, I used to be 120 pounds, and now I'm not.
The USTAs. How do you spell USTA?
Yesterday, I used to do that. When sometimes you've seen some of the statistics about men in retirement who die early in their retirement because they feel stripped of the identity that made meaning to them in their work.
Right.
I used to be important. Now I don't feel that way. Mothers and fathers experiencing empty nest syndrome when their children hit adulthood. Now that I'm not a mother, you're always a mother. You're going to be a mother always. You're just not actively doing day-to-day parenting.
Right. Right.
So comparing then to now is not a good thing.
No.
Comparing yourself to other people, not a good thing. No one else in the world has the same mix of experience, instinct, capacity, skill, and character as you. So comparing yourself to others very often leaves you wanting, leaves you at the low end of the scale. And you've heard the saying, don't compare your behind the scenes to somebody else's highlight reel.
I know.
Because all those people whose lives look perfect to you when you're looking at them from the outside, I promise you, they have their moments of negative self-talk and doubt and pain and loss. And just because they plaster on the smile and the positive performance doesn't mean it was easy for them to get there. It doesn't mean they'll stay there. And it doesn't mean that you can't be there too.
You guys.
So comparisonitis. And the third is don't compare perfect to possible.
Oh, there's a big one.
I'm calling to you, all you perfectionists out there, all you people who cannot get there until you think it's going to be perfect. When nothing will satisfy you about you accept some idealized story you wrote in your mind, by the way, about what makes the perfect Gail or the perfect Aaron or the perfect Molly or whomever. If you have in your mind a perfect person in a perfect way, and you look at where you are right now, you hear, I can't, I won't, it might not, it's too hard. And the truth is that who you are in this moment is perfectly who you're meant to be in this moment. And there are some things that, try as you might, and as much as you'd like to rewrite the story, you're not going to do it. And I'll give you an example. I would love to be 5'9", legs that go on forever, and 122 pounds.
Sign me up.
I am 5 feet 4 inches tall, and barring somebody putting me on the rack, I'm not ever going to be 5 feet 9 inches tall. I am 67 years old. I weigh upwards of 190 pounds. I'm not going to be 122 pounds unless I'm very ill. That's not going to happen. And so if that perfect vision of who Gail needs to be physically is what I am comparing who I am now to, I'm always lacking. I'm always on the losing end of the stick. If I say, am I the best me I can be in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Am I grooming well, dressing well, appreciating my appearance, all of those kinds of things? Then, am I concerned about how I present to the world? That's what's important. And why I ever wrote that story in my mind, who knows? But it's okay for me to say that story doesn't work for me anymore. It's not possible. So when you compare the perfect to the possible, you're always on the losing end of the scale. So, those kinds of affirmations, positive phrases, but boy, don't get sick with comparisonitis.
Oh, you're going to be sick forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gail, clearly, like, we get to do this again and continue this conversation because we are, I think it's nailing it for a lot of people. And I think that it doesn't matter how many times we hear it, when we hear it from somebody else or in a different way, or for that 101st time instead of I've already heard it 100 times,
Mm-hmm.
right? It lands. And it's landing, I'm pretty confident, for a lot of people today. And it's beneficial to have this conversation more than not, because perfect or possible, which one are you going to have? And how many times can we continue to have this self-talk versus self-sabotage come up? And how many times can we anticipate that successful change based on how we talk, right? All of the things that we went on to today and covered today, and especially, like, don't get sick. Like, just seriously, don't get comparitis. It's horrible. It's horrible. And we all fall into that.
It is an easy habit. And in our world, with, airbrushed and photoshopped pictures
right
out there, with fictionalized stories of people's lives, with all of that, what's truth in terms of everyday people's lives is not what we see in the media. And so it is easy to take on what our culture tells us we need to be.
So true.
And the truth is that we can tell ourselves what and how we need to be if we will take charge of what we say to ourselves after we say those magic words, I am. Make what you say after you say, I am, positive, powerful. That's the key to using good self-talk instead of self-sabotage.
You guys, I adore this lady. Like, seriously, we've had multiple conversations leading up to today, and like I just want to stay on the phone with her, and I just want to keep the conversation going because her wisdom is so solid. And like, we didn't even really cover any of your background that led you to here and why you are positioned as an expert and a word
Right.
wizard, and what really, I mean, people can go dive into you, Gail. They can go like troll you and figure out your backstory, but it is impressive, people. It's really, really impressive. And
Thank you, Erin.
her training sets her up so that she can be an expert with us, talking about self-sabotage, self-talk, flipping it to self-positive talk, flipping it so that we create more in our worlds because of the positivity in our language, and what we're putting out is what's going to come back, and total acknowledgement of that. You guys, Gail has a free gift for you. You're welcome to go grab it. It is the 5 keys to what, Gail? 5 keys.
The 5 keys to mastering change.
To mastering
So we
change.
just talked in this conversation about the first 3 keys. There are 2 more, and we've got it in an infographic. So if you'll just email me at gail@masterfulmessaging.com, I will send it right to you.
That's awesome. And we'll make sure that that's in the link is in the feed, so you guys can just click that and go and email her and grab that, those 5 keys and what you get to do with them. But Gail, Dixon, you are delightful. Please be safe with the storm coming in.
Thank you.
And we're sending all kinds of good, positive vibes that storm turns right back out to sea, and it doesn't hit land.
Thank you. And that's what we're praying for, is safety and
yeah,
you know, and prayers for just lots of great relief efforts for all those suffering people in the Bahamas. That
for sure.
It's going to take a long time.
For sure. For sure. Gail, thank you for being with us today. All of our people who have been listening, both on our watch party, wherever you're listening to and watching us from, thank you so much. If you're on our podcast, we really appreciate you. And we'll see you right back here soon, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Erin.
You're welcome.
Bye.